We get to see the maple trees, maple sugar and the maple leaves. We get the biggest wheat fields growing tall. In Canada, where we see the reversing falls. In Canada, we get to see them all.
G'day, eh? Well, hello there. So, last week a story broke about American spies in Greenland, stoking separatism among the residents and pushing pro-American annexation. 3 U.S. citizens tied to the U.S. administration allegedly traveled covertly to Greenland to recruit backers for a split with Denmark. And this sure isn't just for security or Arctic defense. It's part of the Mango Mussolini's continued quest for American expansionism and the plunder of critical mineral supplies in several countries, including Canada and Ukraine and elsewhere. The Danish Foreign Minister, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, summoned the top U.S. diplomat in Copenhagen, Chargé d'Affaires Mark Stroh, to issue a formal complaint, telling the press, if anyone thinks they can influence it by creating a fifth column or that type of activity, then it's contrary to the way states cooperate. It's important for us to speak out very clearly against the United States. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said, any interference in internal affairs in the Kingdom of Denmark and Greenlandic democracy is unacceptable. Danish Security and Intelligence Service, PET, said Nuuk was the target of influence campaigns of various kinds that would aim to create discord in the relationship between Denmark and Greenland. Orange Julius Jr. famously visited the island this past winter, where he handed out bribes to homeless people if they wore MAGA hats and showed enthusiasm for an American takeover. And tensions peaked when J.D. Vance visited a U.S. military base in March, where he denigrated Danish rule, and then ordinary Greenlanders refused to meet with him or his wife on their walkabout with TV cameras. The alleged U.S. espionage operation means the whole misery over Greenland isn't over, former Danish Foreign Minister Martin Lidegaard said. In response, the U.S. State Department told the Danish national broadcaster DR that the 3 U.S. citizens in the report weren't on official business and that the U.S. government does not control or direct the actions of private citizens. And another White House official told Reuters that the Danes need to calm down. Greenland held elections in March in which a pro-business and Danish-friendly party, the Democrats, had beat the U.S.-friendly Nallerdak opposition party. Pelle Broberg, the head of Nallerdak, said, should we never talk to anybody but Denmark? We don't get what the big issue is right now. The Danish, French, and German governments are trying to influence the Greenlandic government every single day. It's just business as usual.
I don't want the U.S. to invade us. They can do their own business, military business in Thule, but they are not welcome here in Nuuk.
The only country who can protect us is not Denmark. It's only the U.S. who can protect Greenland and the Arctic and the Northern Hemisphere and Western Hemisphere. It's the U.S.
It's very scary for me. So, like, he can do whatever he wants, kind of. Yeah, so it's very scary.
I'm a human. Humans are not for sale. We are not for sale. You are not for sale in your country. You know that. That's why I'm very angry about that.
We are together against US takeover.
Well, this kind of unwanted interference has been occurring in Canada for the past decade or so, since MAGA and far-right ideology has infiltrated our society and the world. Canadian separatist movements in the past were primarily the province of Quebec, but it's spread to our western provinces, thanks to social media propaganda and other influences, as well as old grievances with the federal government. But since his return to the White House, we've seen a stream of conservative Canadians degrade themselves with their praise of MAGA policies. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, Shark Tank celeb and business mogul Kevin O'Leary, crackpot psychologist Jordan Peterson, and even our once revered great one, Wayne Gretzky, who've done the Mar-a-Lago tango with a decrepit dictator. According to DeSmog, in March of 2025, Calgary lawyer Jeffrey Rath appeared on Fox and Friends to declare that Alberta is fed up with Ottawa, frustrated by the carbon tax, which is now gone, and equalization payments that Alberta makes to other provinces. Rath said Albertans are exploring independence or even thinking about joining the United States.
The feeling you are for joining America?
Hundreds of Albertans that are reaching out and volunteering to join our delegation. Right now, our group is very small. It's a steering committee of people that are looking to come to Washington on an exploratory basis and meet with a representative appointed by President Trump to explore the benefits of either Alberta becoming an independent sovereign nation with economic union to the United States, becoming a U.S. territory, or pursuing full statehood.
How is Canada,
those are our goals.
God, how has Canada lost their way? How has Canada lost their way that makes you think you got to join us?
Trudeau and Carney, are all wringing their hands over the tariffs. They're going to be kicking Albertans in the teeth and bringing in a 21% carbon tax increase in April. This is, the carbon tax itself is just an insult to hardworking Albertans that can't afford to heat their homes and can't afford diesel and gas for their cars and trucks to go to work. That's a big part of why it is that people in Alberta are fed up with being governed by idiotic politicians from Quebec and Ontario that do not understand our province and do not understand that culturally we're far more closely affiliated with our friends to the south in Montana than we are with all of the people in Ottawa wringing their hands over the smell of diesel exhaust when people from Alberta come to protest how badly we're being treated by Ottawa.
What's your message to Donald Trump? 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Greenland self-determination. Please support Alberta self-determination. You promised that to Alberta in the same way you promised it to Greenland. We'll be an excellent partner to the United States and we'll all prosper.
All right, let's see how big your delegation gets, Jeff, how many calls you get, and maybe, Jeff, you will be governor of our 51st state when it's all said and done.
The cowboy hat-clad, self-described constitutional litigator has an ex-bio that boasts he's a legal advocate with 20-plus years championing First Nations rights in Canada. However, in June of this year, Rath was admonished by the court and ordered to pay $10,000 in fines for twice breaching professional standards. A three-person Law Society of Alberta committee imposed the reprimand and also ordered that he pay the $10,000 in costs. You have a responsibility to the members of the public and to the Law Society to represent their best interest. You failed in this case. You must do better. Rath admitted guilt to the two citations, the first of which states he was fired by Thunderchild First Nation, TFN, but failed to cooperate in transferring legal records to its new lawyer, taking 6 months to eventually transfer them. Second citation states he misrepresented to the court that he remained TFN's lawyers in November of 2019, when in fact TFN had effectively sacked him as their representative 2 months earlier. While politicians and commenters like Rath talk about independence as a matter of provincial will, ACFN's leadership is clear. The Athabasca Chippewa First Nation ACFN Chief Alan Adam issued a firm reminder that Indigenous nations, not provinces, are party to Canada's founding treaties. Alberta's current discourse about separating from Canada fundamentally conflicts with our inherent and constitutionally protected Treaty 8 rights. Signed in 1899, Treaty 8 is a nation-to-nation agreement between First Nations and the Crown that predates Alberta's existence. It guarantees the right to hunt, fish, trap, and live on the land, rights that would not simply dissolve in the event of Alberta leaving Confederation. Alberta has no authority to alter or negate these solemn agreements, Chief Adams said. No provincial legislation or referendum can extinguish or rewrite our treaty rights. These treaties are international in nature. Also leading the charge in separation organization is Mitch Silvestri, CEO of the Alberta Prosperity Project, APP, and also serves as president of the Bonnyville Cold Lake St. Paul United Conservative Party Constituency Association. Silvestre chaired the Alberta First Pension Plan Initiative under the APP, advocating for Alberta to break from the Canada Pension Plan and form its own. Premier Daniel Smith has put the plan on hold for the time being, saying at a press conference that there is no appetite for a provincial pension.
With a younger workforce and plenty of jobs with higher pay, Alberta's Premier believes it's time to break free from the CPP.
An Alberta pension plan could increase benefits for seniors, reduce premiums for workers, and protect the pension interests and benefits of all Albertans.
3 years ago, the province commissioned an independent third party to look into the feasibility of pension independence. The LifeMark report found while setting up the system would be costly, up to $2.2 billion to start, it would ultimately save Albertans $5 billion a year in premiums, or about $1,425 per worker, $2,850 for those who are self-employed.
The reality is, since the inception of the CPP, Albertans have been paying much more into it than they've gotten back during that same time.
Based on those contributions, the report believes Alberta is entitled to more than $300 billion of the federal fund.
As of 2020, Alberta had 15% of the contributors to the pension plan and 12% of the recipients or the beneficiaries. So for us to go after $300 and some odd million, I think is going to be a tough sales job.
Let me start by saying that the CPP, I think, is one of the crown jewels of Canada.
While the federal finance minister said Thursday she hadn't yet seen details of Alberta's proposal, its calculations are based on rules set out in the Canada Pension Plan Act.
This is ultimately going to be a very long legal fight where the Supreme Court of Canada will need to weigh in on some of the really vague language in the Act itself.
Alberta won't move forward with plans for an APP just yet. The province plans to workshop the idea with voters first before holding a referendum to let Albertans have the final say.
Smith has offered tacit support for pieces of the APP's platform, but is cautious when pressed on the full separatist agenda. At an unrelated news conference in May, Smith dismissed questions about APP's pension petition, saying, "Having people sign up on a website saying that they will ultimately sign a petition is one thing. Getting the physical signatures signed up is another. That's why we have to wait for the process to play out." Okay, that's why, huh? Separatists would have to manage to get enough signatures to trigger a referendum declaring Alberta's sovereignty from Canada, and then win enough votes to pass the referendum. In another report from DSMOG, we learned that officials in the Trump administration discussed loaning the oil-rich province of Alberta hundreds of millions of dollars to help it become independent from Canada. Dennis Modry, the former CEO of the APP, a group devoted to pushing Alberta towards self-determination through a provincial referendum, claimed he met the senior U.S. administrative officials just a couple of steps away from the president himself.
According to bombshell-y reporting from DSMOG, Albertan separatists were reportedly offered $500 million by Trump officials to aid in their separation from Canada. Officials in the Donald Trump administration discussed loaning the oil-rich province of Alberta hundreds of millions of dollars to help it become independent from Canada, a prominent separatist group is claiming. Quote, "I met the senior U.S. administrative officials just a couple of steps away from the president himself," recalled Dennis Modry, the former CEO of the Alberta Prosperity Project, a group devoted to pushing Alberta towards self-determination through a political provincial referendum. He says, "When we walked into the conference room, the first comment was, we recognize and support Alberta becoming a sovereign nation for the first time," he said. He was a member of the Commonwealth of Alberta delegation to Washington in April 2025. Hear one of the remaining founders of the group speak on Fox News about that delegation, coming up in a clip immediately after this. This, if true, is an absolute outrage because it means that the Trump White House is interfering with Canadian democracy.
Alberta, of course, can provide energy security, he said. It can also provide water security, agricultural security, forestry security, metal security, coal security, plus an industrious workforce. So there is a tremendous benefit to the U.S. to work with us. Modry's remarks came during a mid-June separatism event in Red Deer, Alberta, that was organized by the right-wing political website Rebel News. One of the title sponsors was the America Fund, an organization that believes in a bold new future, one where Alberta joins the U.S. as the 51st state. Well, we know old decaying Donnie wants to fulfill his dream of plundering Canada for its critical minerals, just like his ambitions in Greenland. He made it clear with his taunts and insults even before the TACO trade war began. And in his comments captured by a hot microphone in early February, former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau told a crowd of business leaders that Trump's threats are real and motivated by a desire to absorb our resources. New Prime Minister Carney echoed Trudeau's concerns after he won the Liberal leadership race, saying that Americans want our resources, our water, our land, our country. Elizabeth Stein, a mining and finance law expert at the University of Calgary, says that Trump's comments are partly motivated by the United States' need to transform its energy and digital sectors, as well as boost national security by accessing more critical minerals. I think we're being put under economic pressure as a way to soften us up for the kind of reciprocal mineral deal, adding that Trump advisors would certainly have knowledge of the Ring of Fire deposits. Northern Ontario's mineral-rich Ring of Fire is a region spanning roughly 5,000 kilometers where vast reserves of nickel, chromite, zinc, platinum, copper, and many other critical minerals are believed to be buried. Trump signed an executive order to start an investigation into all U.S. critical mineral imports. He'd previously signed another executive order to increase the production of domestic critical minerals, and the U.S. is currently negotiating critical mineral deals with Ukraine and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Canada isn't the only place Trump is zoning in on. He's using foreign war aid as a bargaining chip to get Ukraine's critical minerals.
I think we've seen since Russia invaded Ukraine the importance of commodities from a geopolitical perspective. I think all countries are looking at how to secure their supply, not be dependent on their adversaries for that supply.
Thing is, the US can already get to our resources.
Does Donald Trump want to steal our critical minerals? What is the motivation here? American companies have the same access to Canadian minerals as Canadian companies have. They have to negotiate the terms of the purchase, but the border itself is not relevant under the free trade agreement.
When you say steal, what do you mean?
That's to take them without paying a fair market price, without actually having a consensual contractual relationship. The CEOs of thousands of big companies in the United States know that free trade works for them. And that, I hope, will restrain Donald Trump in the months ahead.
Last week, Carney met with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz in Berlin, where they discussed Germany's interest in Canadian liquefied natural gas and on continuing the development of ammonia and hydrogen supplies from Canada to Europe. Canada has considered the option of supplying Europe with liquefied natural gas, LNG, for some time, but plans for export terminals on the East Coast have not materialized yet, largely due to the need for massive new port and pipeline infrastructure to transport the fuel to the coast, liquefy it, and ship it to Europe. The recently opened LNG export terminal on the West Coast is well placed to deliver fossil gas to countries in Asia. But the biggest takeaway from the meeting was an agreement for the two countries to work together to develop critical mineral resources. Canada has immense potential to be a leading and reliable global supplier of critical minerals, and Canada and Germany are natural strategic partners in this mission, said Prime Minister Carney in a press statement. As Germany's domestic demand for critical minerals grows and it diversifies its supply chains, Canadian workers and industries can be the strong, stable provider of these indispensable resources. Well, the Red Hats better watch their step. We're on to their games and their underhanded dealings, and we'll not only keep control of our own resources, but we'll defend our allies if any hostile actions are taken against them. Canada and Denmark have long-standing bilateral relations. Canada has an embassy in Copenhagen. Denmark has an embassy in Ottawa and a consulate general in Toronto. Both countries are full members of NATO and the Arctic Council. And after all, we settled the Whiskey War. Between 1973 and 2022, Hans Island was under dispute between the two nations. although never amounting to a direct conflict or violence. In 1984, Canadian soldiers visited the island and planted a Canadian flag and also left a bottle of Canadian whiskey. The Danish Minister of Greenland Affairs came to the island himself later the same year with the Danish flag and a bottle of schnapps and a letter stating, "Welcome to the Danish island." The two countries proceeded to take turns with their flags on the island and exchanging alcoholic beverages, all with great humor. And after the 2022 treaty, the balance is 40% Canada, western portion of the island, and 60% Greenland, Denmark on the eastern portion. So take off, hosers. We don't even want your bourbon. Well, hey there. So I ended my last video recording on the whiskey wars between Denmark and Canada and made a snarky remark about we don't need your stinking bourbon. Well, it appears we have a new whiskey war up here. As famous Crown Royal has closed their plant in Ontario on Tuesday. They're shutting their bottling facility in Amherstburg, Ontario. They're shifting some operations to the U.S. to improve its North American supply chain. Well, la-di-da, traitors in the whiskey wars. The bottling at the Amherstburg facility intended for the U.S. market would be shifting stateside, while bottling for Canadian consumers would move to its Valleyfield, Quebec location. The Ontario facility will close in February of 26, forcing almost 200 people to lose their jobs. They're hurting the people that work at Crown Royal, Doug Ford said, the Premier of Ontario. They're hurting Ontario residents. So you know something? A message to the CEO in France: you hurt my people, I'm going to hurt you. You're going to feel the pain in February when these people don't have a paycheck. Well, I gotta say, I'm disappointed. Crown Royal has been a traditional Canadian rye whiskey brand, and this is a big kick in the pants. So for the first time, I'm with Doug Ford. Well, he's been doing okay lately, but you know what I mean. Fuck Crown Royal. Seagram's is okay, eh?
Hey, yeah, you. Before you click away to watch someone unbox a tactical toothbrush, let's talk about something real. Political Drain isn't just another content mill. We're a digital front in a very real war. Not with bullets, but with ideas, with action, and with solidarity. We pair urgent news with critical education. And we build community around actual resistance, not the hashtag kind. The kind that moves. But here's the thing. None of this is free. It isn't. Behind every video is time, labor, research, and some weird guy asking if we're going to pay the hosting bill. And yeah, some of that money goes to things we can't necessarily say out loud. If you know, you know. Let's just say our special ops aren't Call of Duty LARPers. They're people making real moves to protect, uplift, and organize. You're not just funding a channel. You're funding a resistance network in a world where capital still calls the shots. Unfortunately, in a system built on artificial scarcity, even mutual aid has a price tag. And if we want to grow, if we want to win, we need your help. We need your help. So if you've got even a few bucks to spare, toss it our way. It's not for ads, it's not for merch drops, but for people making moves in the shadows so others can do it in the light. It's just us and you. So fund the mission, fund the fight, fund the future, because nobody's coming to save us. We save each other. That's how this works. Follow us on all these things you see here, and our link tree is in the description. Maybe even get some merch.